Hello and welcome to Full Throttle. Now I would like to talk to you about a car company called Pagani. For you see, in 1999 they made their very first car, the Pagani, actually the Zonda. It was a really good car. In fact, I would actually dare say it was the best hypercar on the planet that you could buy back then. And for 12 years, Pagani have made, kept on updating the Zonda until eventually they had to they had to make a new car. So they fought tirelessly on what car they should do, where they should go, until eventually they came up with a decision. And what we have is this, the Pagani Huayra. Now the name may be spelled differently, but the name may be confusing, but in essence it is still, if we look here, a Pagani. And as you can see on this car, it still looks bonkers and outrageous like the old Zonda did. Like you can see here, how much luxurious it is. Look at that. It got that part. It got the looks part right. But question is, how is this car compared to its predecessor? Well, to find out, I took it to India. Hello, you join me in the hills of India, where the terrain here is simply unbelievable, and it's getting heavier by the minute. But does the car want to give up? No siree. I mean, this car is actually very, very, it just wants to keep going. One of the main reasons of that is the active aerodynamics inside this car. Everything from the front, the grooves, to the rear, actually, and even more interestingly, on the front and in the back as well, there are flaps that go up whenever you're turning a corner. They turn left or right, depending on which way you're turning. Or they use it to help you with braking, as they usually do. Now with that said, the first thing you notice when you get inside this car is the lavish interior, which is the same as most Paganis that you're sort of used to it by now. But one thing you're not noticed, the gearbox. The gearbox in this is a 7-speed gearbox with an AMT rebalancing system with driving programs, and I have to say, it is unbelievably smooth. I mean, changing gear is so easy to do, and what's even more impressive, the engine. Essentially, what it is a 6-liter AMG V12, which is the same as the engines that Pagani usually use. But what's so special about this one is that this is fitted with a twin turbocharger, so now it produces 730 brake horsepower in a car that weighs 1,350 kilograms. The reason why it weighs that? The bodywork. It is a carbotanium body. Now, what essentially that means is that it's made out of a blend of carbon fiber and titanium, and as a result of that, well, not only does it deliver 730 brake horsepower and 728 foot-pounds of torque, but it can go from 0 to 60 in less than 3.5 seconds, and it will keep on going to a top speed of over 213 miles an hour, which I don't know if you know, but it is which makes this the fastest Pagani, except the Zonda R. But Okay, fastest legal. The steering in this is fantastic. Steering and the brakes are fantastic. I mean, so much so that it actually makes the car easy to use, and that is a brilliant thing. The suspension mostly on hypercars would usually be rough and rash, which that was a main problem I had with a Zonda. It seems like they fixed the problem with the Huayra, and I appreciate that a lot. Which means that yes, you can and will want to use this on the road. And what's even more impressive, despite the big AMG engine and the twin turbochargers, it does 23.5 miles per gallon. So on the roads, it's an impressive car. But you may be wondering, how is it when you take it to a racetrack? Well, to find out, you know what? Let's find out as I take this car to the racetrack. I am here at the Tamal racetrack, and it seems that the weather has thankfully dried up. The weather's supposed to change, but for now, let's just concentrate on this Huayra, and let me just say, oh my god. I mean, all the active aerodynamics and the engine and all, suddenly when you get into this car, they sort of make sense, because when you're on the road, you wouldn't normally see the active aerodynamics working and the brakes working in tandem with it. But in this, it is a simple. It makes the car even more. It makes the car better. The gearbox, as I said before, is a transfer 7-speed single clutch automatic manual gearbox system mounted in the back. Now the gearbox in this is absolutely spot on. I mean, the car's gearbox, it's so light. The gearbox is so light that you can easily change it. The engine admittedly isn't as musical as a V12 as the old one. In fact, if I was to describe it, I would actually say if it's a more industrial, deep and booming sort of V12. The ride remains supple, but there's a sense that it is slightly heavier and less nimble than the Zonda. However, that means that the Huayra is easy to drive around in, and it pulls out that trick very well. The gearbox is superb as soon as you're rolling. However, it isn't as smooth on takeoff as you would like it to be. The engine in this is simply outrageous and has fantastic throttle response for a turbocharged car. Performance wise, you need to go with, I would say, a Veyron to go quicker, and incredibly, it puts down its power with almost no wheel spin. It's really an aggressive, progressive chassis, but the sheer ferocity of the engine naturally gives the Huayra a real advantage. Thankfully, the ESC is superb, and you can toggle between automatic, comfort, and sport with the ESC button on the steering wheel. It also alters your throttle response in gearbox software. Sport is perfectly calibrated and driving in the dry. The question is, how does it compare to the Zonda? Well, it's perhaps less instantly nimble and infectious as the Zonda, but has great depth of talent. But this car has a great depth of talent. It's almost Veyron quick, but being rear-wheel drive, it's more exciting, but it's not too edgy as something like a Carrera GT. Now, the Huayra is its own sort of supercar, and it's at once luxurious and intense, and it doesn't it doesn't half feel special when you spot the active arrow doing its little dance in the front or the back. Following the Zonda line was never going to be easy, but following the Zonda line was never going to be an easy challenge. But this car has pulled it off, and then some. It is that good. I would honestly say that it does help. This does continue to bring along the traditions of that. And that's why we come to the final verdict, and I give this a 9 out of 10. It is a great car. If I were to rate this on that, I'd give that a 10. But a 9 is still a good result. That's my final verdict. That's what I think. Now, what we're going to do now is we are going to give it to our test driver to go around Brands Hatch to settle lap time. So fingers crossed, this should be a quick one.